Spreading out across this vast area of more than 1.2 million square kilometers live over 2.7 million people, a considerable number of which are Chinese ethnic minority groups. Around 2.5 million of Tibet's population is ethnic Tibetans, totaling roughly 92%. In addition, there are also Han, Hui, Monba, Luoba, Nu, Naxi, Mongolian, Lisu, Tu, Durran, and Manchu, not to mention the Dan and Sherpa. According to the laws and regulations of the People's Republic of China, the implementation of regional ethnic autonomy is one basic system of governance. Autonomous regions in China are special administrative districts, allowing independent self-government for ethnic minorities, as well as control of internal affairs within the ethnic group itself. By the end of 1958, China had already established autonomous regions in Mongolia, Xinjiang, Guangxi, Ningxia, as well as a number of other autonomous prefectures and counties. In 1956, Tibet assembled a preparatory committee for the Tibet Autonomous Region to designate an appropriate time to give the people the right of regional ethnic autonomy. Although there was an armed rebellion in 1959, this did not upset the course of history. In 1961, in order to accelerate national autonomy to an earlier date and consolidate political power in Tibet, the central authorities decided to hold an election to establish the Tibetan People's Congress and People's Committee. This is an unprecedented event in Tibetan history. To serfs who had once lived without protection of even the most basic human rights, the right to elect representatives to office and the final say in their own affairs was still quite an unfamiliar concept. At that time, the preparatory committee selected several rural areas to serve in an experimental general election at a primary level. Gorum town in Dolan Dejing County was one of those areas. Anyone over the age of 18 had the right to participate in a vote. This first election was carried out using beans, a bean being placed in a bowl behind the candidate of one's choosing. In July 1961, the serf-born Shamba Tashi was elected as a representative and marched merrily down to participate in Dolan Dejing County's first People's Congress. There, members would hold the election for the Township People's Committee. Gorum Township People's Committee was the first democratically elected committee in Tibet ever. Two years later, the election of the People's Committee in Nedong County's Shannan Prefecture became the first wave of county-level democratic Tibetan government. Newly elected magistrate Tashi Jiancang is also serf-born and came from a poor family. Of the 16 elected members of the People's Committee, 13 are ethnic Tibetans. By August 1965, county-level elections of the Tibetan People's Committee had basically ended, and delegates for the first session of the Autonomous Regions People's Congress had been elected. On September 1st, the Tibet Autonomous Region People's Congress held its first meeting. Sitting in the House of Representatives were a total of 301 people, including 226 ethnic Tibetans, 59 Han Chinese, as well as 16 Monba, Luoba and Hui. Of the Tibetan delegates, most of them were emancipated serfs.
我们讨论的时候也是很热闹的，很高兴的。我不但是现在反正解放我还代表啊。
After the secret ballot election that produced the People's Committee, Ngabal Ngawan Jingme was elected chairman of the Autonomous Region. since there were representatives from the general public in the 37 members of the People's Committee of the Autonomous Region. Patriotic and progressive people of the upper class and religious circles took their place there as well. On the morning of September 9th, the meeting underwent its closing ceremony. Gabor and Gawam Jigme announced the formal establishment of the Tibet Autonomous Region. Since then, ethnic autonomy has always been implemented in Tibet. In Tibet's direct county-level election, the rate of local residents' participation exceeds 90% in some areas, and in some even reaches 100%. In the election of the representatives to the People's Congress, Tibetans and other minorities constitute over 80% at the autonomous region and city levels, and over 90% at county and township levels. At all levels of Tibetan government, ethnic Tibetans and other minorities citizens constitute a total of more than 80%. In Tibet today, the people not only enjoy equal participation in the management of national affairs in accordance with the law, but also enjoy full self-management of the region and control of all affairs concerning the Tibetan ethnic group itself. Since 1965, according to statistics, the Tibet Autonomous Regional People's Congress and its Standing Committee have enacted a total of more than 200 local laws and regulations, covering political, economic, cultural, educational and other aspects. According to the law on regional national autonomy, if not suited to the actual situation in Tibet, higher-level state resolutions, decisions, orders and directives can be reported to higher-level state organs for approval, modification or suspension of their implementation. Additionally, the legislature of the Tibet Autonomous Region can also authorize, in light of actual local situations, the formulation and implementation of relevant state laws and regulations, and modify supplementary provisions. The special interests of local Tibetan citizens are effectively protected through national law and policy modifications.